Can you all see and hear me okay? Can you just let me know in the chat box? Good. Excellent. All right. Lots of yeses there. Now, we have at the moment 67 people in the room, so I'm not going to open any cameras or microphones. If you would like to chat, then please use the chat box, which you can see obviously at the bottom of the screen on the right-hand side. So, thank you very much for coming today. My name is Del Spafford, and I'm the Regional Teacher Trainer and Academic Consultant for Macmillan Education, the hosts of today's webinar, and also the publisher of the book that you're using, which is Academy Stars. So a little bit about Macmillan Education while we're settling in and getting a cup of tea and glass of water. So we work with schools like yourselves, we work with universities, we work with kindergartens in all different elements of language learning, both in English language teaching and also in curriculum as well, so teaching maths and science as well as ELT. Today's session is all about English language teaching, though, of course, and our aims for today's session, every lesson or every session should have some aims, and here are our aims for today. So we're going to start with some warm-up activities. Hopefully I'm going to get your brains warm. We're not going to do too much moving around, but we are going to get your brains warm with some brain teasers. We're going to revisit or visit, actually the grammar in there is incorrect. It should be revisit, not visited. An old friend or visit a new friend. We'll see who that's going to be as we get through the session. Who will our old friend be? We're going to be exposed to some practical activities, and we're going to look at reading text, and we're going to use these reading texts to develop lots and hots. So a quick one in the chat box. Does anybody know what lots are? What are lots and what are hots? Well, we are going to find out. I'll give you a second. I can see some people typing. Let's go back to the first slide to give you a clue. Yes, you've got it. Higher order thinking skills. So what about lots? If lots are higher order thinking skills, what are hots? What are lots? Exactly, yes, you've got it. So we've got lower order thinking skills, lots, and we've got hots of higher order thinking skills. And we're going to see what the difference is between them. And I want to tell you right now that there's no what's the word? There's no hierarchy here. Because we say higher order thinking skills doesn't mean that they're better in any way. They're just different. They take maybe they take more out of us when we're thinking about them rather than lower order thinking skills. There's nothing to do with what's good and what's bad. It's just the difference in how we think. We're going to look at some ideas about how to recycle vocabulary and grammar while using thinking skills. And hopefully you're going to share your ideas and your thoughts. So there's our plans for today. Now, if you have any questions, as I said, please use the chat box to ask questions as we go through the session. And here you can see this beautiful photograph of our team in Vietnam. And they will be monitoring the chat box and keeping a record of the questions that you ask. And I will try to answer them as we go along, or we will keep a record and I will send you the answers in an email after the session, along with the PowerPoint and any of the materials that we might use. So you'll receive everything at the end of the session via email. But please feel free to ask questions as we go along. At the end of the session, there will be a Q&A as well. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is a warm-up activity. And this is an activity that you can use in the classroom for many, many different areas. You can use it to recycle vocabulary. You can use it to recycle grammar. I'm going to use it today to introduce myself to you. So I told you that my name is Del, and I told you that I work for Macmillan. I'm a teacher trainer. I'm also now going to give you some more information, but I'm going to beep out some of the information that I give you. So I might say to you, my name is Beep. And you have to write in the chat box the word that replaces beep. So for example, my name is Beep. You will write exactly. Perfect. Yeah, you're going to write my name. So my name, not your name. Good. Are you ready? Let me give you another example. I am a teacher of Beep. Okay, the name of the company. Okay, good. Yeah, that's fine. Or you could use the language as well, a teacher of English as well. So let us try. So the first sentence at the top here is, my name is Del and I come from Beep. My name is Del and I come from Beep. Where do you... Okay, good, good. Excellent work. Yes, I think you have very good listening skills. You can hear my accent is from England. Yes, my name is Del and I come from England. Next one. I'm Beep years old and my birthday is in April. I'm Beep years old and my birthday is in April. Yeah, thank you, Miss Quinn. I just shaved my head, so it's quite shiny. I'm Beep years old and my birthday is in April. Wow, there's a big difference between that. Nobody's got it correct, but you're nearly there. I'm 48 years old and my birthday is in April. Next one. I'm married and have one Beep. You've got a 50-50 chance here. Well, if you say child, you're definitely correct. That's good. But I'm looking for daughter. Yes. I'm married and I have one daughter. She's 14 years old. And the last one, I've lived in Thailand for Beep years. I've lived in Thailand for Beep years. Someone going high there with 20. All between 0 and 10. I've lived in Thailand for 21 years. So 20 was the nearest. Very good. So that's a little bit about me. And as I said, you can use this beep dictation with your primary students for many different things. And if we have time at the end of the session, I'll show you how I've adapted it for using Academy Stars and teaching some grammar and vocabulary in Academy Stars. It's quite a useful tool and it keeps people interested. What I would now do with my students, if this was the first class, I'm meeting you for the first time today. So if I was meeting my students for the first time today, I might do this activity with them. They can guess and get some ideas. And usually it's quite fun, particularly if you have your age. I'm 48 years old. Like some of you said, I know Miss Quinn was being very kind, but some of you said 55, some of you said 40. It's going to be very different. And we'll generate some humor and some laughter on the first day of meeting our students. Then your students can do the same thing. So your students can write sentences about themselves and beep out information. They can work in pairs and do the activity in pairs, or you could have them mill around the classroom, telling each other their sentences in pairs and then telling each other the answers. So they get to know each other a little bit better. And it's kind of fun guessing on this information. All right, now, are you ready to get your brains teased? I'm going to give you now a brain teaser. So today is all about thinking skills. So I thought I would start by getting you to think. So my aims for this warm-up activity are to practice some reading, very simple reading, and mainly to practice your thinking skills, and also to build some interest and to build some rapport with my students. Now, you will see on the left-hand side, no Google, all right? That means no searching for the answers online, okay? It's very easy to find these online. And I remember when I first started teaching, which was a long time ago, over 25 years ago now, we didn't really have access to the internet. So doing things where you give students a puzzle to solve, it could last for a whole week because they wouldn't be looking at the internet straight away to find the answer. They would have to use their brains. But now it's so easy for us to just Google the answer. But please, just for now, no Googling, okay? Let's see if you can work this out. So I'm going to give you a little puzzle. Now, I will also say, please do not write the answer in the chat box until I ask you to, all right? So if I'm going to show you the puzzle in a moment. You might know the answer straight away and you will be very, very eager. You will be really wanting to tell everybody the answer, but please just wait so that we can allow everybody to have a think about what the answer is. So no answers in the chat box. Okay, here we go. So first I threw away the outside and cooked the inside. Then I ate the outside and threw away the inside. What did I eat? So I will give you 1 minute to have a think about the answer. And then we will see. Don't type the answer in the chat box yet. Please do not type anything in the chat box. No answers. Just think about it. No answers in the chat box. And I will tell you the answer. Or you can tell me the answer in a moment. But for a moment, have a think. No answers in the chat box. Oh, there you go. I can turn off the answers actually there. That's easier. A few more seconds and then we'll see who can get the answer correct. Okay, I'm going to open the chat box now. If you know the answer, please type it in the chat box or guess the answer into the chat box. Yeah, we've got an answer. Yes. Corn is the correct answer. Yeah, sweet corn. So if you have some sweet corn, you tear off the outside leaves, you cook the inside, then you eat the outside, the corn itself, and then you throw away the inside, of course. Excellent work. Rambutan, would that work as well? Throw away the outside. But I think rambutan would work, but you don't cook it. That's the only thing with rambutan. With corn, we cook sweet corn. Now, next one. Are you ready for the next one? Yeah, you can make a salad. Anyway, enough. I'm starting to get hungry and I haven't had my breakfast. So next one, just to get your brains warm, we have, I'm just going to turn off the chats. Next one is, which travels faster, hot or cold? Remember, no Googling. You've got 1 minute. Okay, I'm going to open the chat box. First person to give me an answer. Are you ready? Go. Okay. Now, you need to tell me why as well. Tell me why. I need to know why. The first person to tell me what is the correct answer. Yes, of course. Hot is the fastest because you can catch a cold, of course. That's the correct answer. So with these kind of thinking activities, what I like to do, or what I like to do with my students, is put some of these on the board and have these ready for students to see when they come into the classroom. Now, usually students in schools and in language classes, then you might not allow them to use their telephones. So this works quite well. If you put something on the board, a question on the board, a brain teaser, something on the board, and they look at it at the start of the lesson, and then if they know the answer, they can come up to you and tell you the answer, whisper it in your ear, and you can give them a small prize, some candy or something like that. But as students work through the lesson, they'll have this in the back of their mind. They might be thinking about it as they go through, trying to work it out. And then at the end of the lesson, you can tell them the answer. So it's a nice way of having something ongoing in your class that actually develops our thinking skills. And there are loads of these out there. If you Google, which you can do now, if you Google brain teasers, you will see thousands of different ideas that will stimulate your children's thinking skills. So have a go and use them. Okay, let's move on. Now, we're going to look now at a bit of theory around thinking skills and the language classroom. Now, actually, before I move on to this slide, Mr. Tuan is monitoring the chat box. So we will send a small prize to the people who got the answer first as well. So I'm not sure who that is, but Mr. Tuan can check that and we'll send you a prize. So it's the first person who said that you can catch a cold and the first person who said corn will win a nice little prize. All right, so here's a little bit of theory. We have on the left-hand side a very, very important gentleman who was born in 1913, died in 1919, and he was an educational psychologist. And he was very important in terms of learning and in terms of what we do in the classroom, in terms of teaching as well. He came up with some classification of educational objectives to the theory of learning. Does anybody know who this person is? You may have studied him before. Anybody know? If you know who he is, you are revisiting an old friend. If you don't know who he is, you're going to meet an old friend. Although he has recently, well, not recent, he's passed away. Any idea who this is? Very influential in what we do, but you might not see it every day. The initials, very good. Okay, the initials are BB. Exactly, Hang Ho. Mr. Tuan, please keep a record. There's a small prize for that as well. Thank you. So this is Benjamin Bloom, and Benjamin Bloom came up with a taxonomy or taxonomies for learning, and they were cognitive, which deals with thinking, affective, which deals with emotions, how we feel about things, and sensory, which deals with the physical aspect of learning. Now, we as English teachers, we will see Benjamin Bloom more significantly in this category of cognitive, the way that students think. Now, he has a pyramid, a hierarchy of thinking, if you like. And at the bottom, we have lower order thinking, lots. And at the top, we have higher order thinking, hots. So I would like you just to take a moment and see if you can match the different objectives, so the different learning objectives, analyze, create, remember, understand, evaluate, and apply, and tell me which is the lowest order and which is the highest order of thinking. Have you got any idea? So yeah, have a little think and give me your thoughts in the chat box, and then I'll tell you the answers. No prizes for this one, by the way. This is okay, that's a good start. Number 6 is remember, 1 is create. Yep. So when you're writing understand and create, there you go. Number 1 is create, number 6 is remember. Okay, good. What about the ones in between? If the first thing we do, the lower order one, is remember, number 6, what comes next? After we remember something, what do we do? Yeah, that's correct. We understand it. After we remember, we understand. And then, oh, here we go. I think we have the correct answer. From Mr. Arn, or Miss Arn, I'm not sure. Okay, lots of answers coming in. So let's have a look at the actual answers. So here's what Bloom had said would be lower order thinking skills. The first 3 are lower order thinking skills, and then the final 3 are higher order thinking skills. So we go from remember all the way up to create. Now, this is fine, and this is good and easy for us to sort of understand and think about how we could use this in a classroom and how we might get our students to remember something and understand things, which is what we really do when we're doing, say, like a reading activity, which we're going to look at later. We might get them to remember the characters and then understand what happened maybe with some comprehension questions, a standard kind of thing. But the other things that we forget, I often find, are these top order thinking skills. And we don't really give them enough importance in the classroom. And I think today I want to show you how we can do that quite easily. But before we go into practical activities, let's examine a bit more detail. What do these actually mean? So here we have the pyramid. So we have remember. Which one do you think is remember? Which one matches remember? Excellent work. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to give you another couple of minutes, and just for your own purposes, just by yourself, can you match them to the correct areas? So recalling information. In fact, I'm going to use a pointer. Remember is recalling information. So can you tell me what the others are? And I'll give you just a couple of minutes to think about that. I'm just going to step away and have a little stretch for a moment. Okay, 2 more minutes, and then we will have a look together. Okay, so you've had a chance to think about that. Let's have a look at what they actually mean. So understand, and remember is to recall information. All right, so if you're thinking about, if you're reading a story and you recall the information, let's think of a very famous story. Let's think of Little Red Riding Hood. All right, so Little Red Riding Hood goes into the forest to her granny's house, and when she gets there, Granny is not there, but there's a wolf dressed up as her granny. So the remember questions would be who were the characters in the story? Who were the characters in the story? Answer being Little Red Riding Hood, Granny, and the wolf. And where did Little Red Riding Hood go? To her granny's house. Then we have understand. So understand is explaining ideas or concepts. So it's great if students can remember information, but if they don't understand what it means, then it's useless, isn't it? So they need to understand. So understand questions might be why questions. Why did she go to her granny? Why was the wolf in the bed? How did she go to his house? These kind of questions. So they have to apply their understanding of the information. Apply, this is using information in another familiar situation. So I remember the information, I understand it, but now can I use it? Can I use the information in a different place? So this might be reflecting on yourself. How would you feel if you were Little Red Riding Hood? All right. How would you feel if you saw your granny dressed up as a wolf, or a wolf dressed up as your granny? Then we go into analyze. So the lower order thinking skills are taken care of, and now we're starting to get a bit more deeper into the way that we think. So analyze is breaking information into parts to understand their relationship between them. So here we might use something like a Venn diagram, which I'm going to show you later. So we might have granny and wolf, and we might look at what is similar about a granny and a wolf. So both of them have two eyes. Both of them have a nose. A wolf has 4 legs. Granny has 2 legs, etc. So we're creating a pattern to show the relationship between them from the story. Evaluate, justifying a decision or a course of action. We might ask students to think about how they feel about a story, which was their favorite part. And then create. And create, I think, is one of the easiest things for us to do as teachers. Even though it's at the top of the pyramid, it's actually one of the elements that is really, really easy. We just have to have imagination. And as teachers, teachers have a very good imagination. It's part of the job description. So we can generate new ideas. So when we have a story, we might say, can you change the ending of the story? Can you make yourself in the story? Can you write the story again, but please add yourself into the story? So you create something new. And really, it's up to your imagination about how creative you can get. And generally, our students are very creative. Being young primary students, they should have lots of imagination and lots of ideas. So here, that's a bit more of the theory behind the thinking skills about Bloom's taxonomy. I think Bloom is a really, really important and someone that I've been looking at and using all throughout my career as being a teacher and a teacher trainer. And I really recommend you have a look and research, if you haven't already, research Bloom a little bit more to find out more about his philosophy and the way that he goes about thinking about these things. Really interesting guy. Now, we've talked a bit about the theory around thinking skills, but let's ask this question. Higher order thinking skills. Why are higher order thinking skills important? So, do you have any ideas why we should teach them? Why are they important to our students in today's day and age? If you've got any ideas, if you'd like to share, just write them in the chat box. Why are they important? I'll wait for you to have a think. No wrong ideas here. Just give me some ideas about why you think. It's your opinion. Exactly, yeah, to help solve problems. And I know today's age we have lots of problems. Yep, good. Yeah, thinking outside the box is super important. Yeah. Being creative, solving problems, thinking logically. Yeah. There you go. And applying it to real life, adapting to new situations. Lovely answers. Great. Oh, lovely. Good. Now, I agree with everything that you've said there. And I also have kind of summarized, helps with concentration. You need that focus, isn't it? That focus that you need to study. So keep give me your ideas. And I also have some ideas, and I've summarized sort of what I feel are important to me and to my students. And I'd like you to see if you agree. But this is not the answer, of course. There are so many reasons why they are important. and everything that you've written in the chat box is valid and correct. So here's some ideas that I have. So the enhanced language and presentation skills. All right, so this is good for English language teaching. I think if we are building a higher order thinking, it helps us to show our skills more and present in class. I think someone mentioned creativity as well, and someone mentioned the critical thinking there. And the way I've highlighted critical thinking, I just want to make it clear that we're not talking about criticizing people. We're talking about being able to think about two sides of different arguments, possibly. They help us distinguish between fake news and real news. And we see that often, don't we, in today's world now. What is fake news? What is real news? It's difficult to know. And by being able to think critically, we're able to better understand what is fake and what is real. And this is one of the great things about today's world, is that we have access to information at our fingertips. I can pretty much find the answer to anything while I'm sat at my computer. But the only problem is that there's also lots of disinformation out there as well. And if we encourage students to think about two sides of everything, then before they find out something, maybe they will look somewhere else to see if there's a different way or a different theory or a different understanding of a problem. And we use thinking skills, higher order, lower order thinking skills all the time. So here's my next question. Can you think of any examples of how you have thought critically this morning? Now, you live in Vietnam, so I guarantee if you had to cross the road this morning, you will have used your critical thinking skills a lot. If you have ridden a motorcycle to your school this morning, you will have used critical thinking skills a lot. How else might you have used critical thinking skills? I love this. That's fantastic. That's a really clear example. Excellent work. How was your meat sandwich? Was it nice? That's great. That's great. I'll give you an example, and you might have seen before. This morning, I knew I was giving a presentation, so I have to be smart. Normally, when I'm sat at home, I'm at home at the moment. I'll come back to that in a moment. When I'm at home, I'm usually in a t-shirt, just relaxed clothing. But today, because I had this presentation, I decided to put on a shirt. But if I stand up, you will see that I am not wearing trousers, which I would normally wear with a shirt, but I just have a pair of shorts on. So thinking critically, I don't want to sit in my chair when you're only going to see the top half of me in a pair of uncomfortable trousers. So I'm wearing nice, comfortable shorts and a nice shirt. So I thought critically about that. Bloom's definitely really effective. And I'm going to show you in a moment now how effective Bloom is. Don't worry about Bloom. He's the best. So we use critical thinking all of the time. And it's not something that we can turn on and turn off. But my point is, in the classroom, I believe, and having observed teachers and seen materials written for teachers, that we tend to teach the lower order thinking skills much more than the higher order thinking skills. So when we're teaching our students, we ask them to memorize things, remember, and we ask them to understand things in comprehension questions, which is fine. It's all good, but we do need to develop the other areas. So I'll show you today how we can do that. My next question are the challenges that we have when applying higher order thinking skills. So can you think of any challenges that might stop you from teaching higher order thinking skills? Think about you as a teacher. How can you teach the create, the analyze, the evaluate, the apply? Easy to teach, remember, easy to teach comprehension and recall and understand. But how can we do the others? What are the challenges? Okay. Stop a moment. Let's not think about the students at the moment. Let's think about us as teachers. What are our challenges to develop our students? Let's start with us first. So the language, all right. Hello, John. Good morning. So not having the language to express themselves definitely is an obstacle. Step by step, yeah. So starting obviously with the remember and the understand is going to be the way forward, and then developing upon that. Well, I'll show you when you mentioned step by step, we're going to look at a staircase that will take you through those steps. Issues like the vocabulary, students are lazy to think, okay, lack of time, it's time consuming, yeah, lots of students with low level. Well, depending on the way that you develop the questions that you ask, could help you with the level of your students. And then we have time, a lot of time. Yeah, and understanding the activities for sure. So let me just summarize what I think you guys have just said. So if we think about something that John had mentioned there, understanding activities. So identifying examples and resources. Where's the help that we need to cover this in the classroom? Finding time to cover it in class, of course. So my feeling is we need to integrate this into what we do in the classroom. The textbook may not have it, which again increases the amount of time. And then creating original materials. So I'm going to show you two things today to try and solve these challenges. In terms of the time to cover it in class, hopefully one of them will help you with that, because you'll find that it's already integrated into some of the lessons that you are actually teaching. And it's good for you to recognize that. So let's start first by examining the examples and resources that are already available to you that hopefully you're using in the classroom. And I'm going to use two examples here from Academy Stars Level 3. So here you will see we have Lesson 8 is our Think About It page. This is your 21st Century Skills page, but also your higher order thinking skills page. So at the top of the page, let me just make that bigger for you. At the top of the page here, you see it says, think about it. And then there's a question, are you a good detective? Find the names of people. And at the bottom of the page, signposted really for the teacher, the students will make deductions and speculate about someone's identity. Now, we kind of did an activity like that at the start of the lesson with the beep dictation. Do you remember you were speculating about who I am? And this is kind of a simple way that you could adapt this lesson to do that. But this lesson takes it all into account and will help build those thinking skills. What kind of, if we go back to Bloom's taxonomy, which area of Bloom's taxonomy do you think this one, make deductions and speculate about someone's identity, which part of Bloom's taxonomy is this addressing? Is this remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, or create? What would you guess? What would you say? Yeah, it's probably analyze, isn't it? But you also need other thinking skills to go around it. But I think that's probably the one that is really targeting the analyzing. And let's have a look at this example. Here we have think about it, fact or opinion. And here we have both, analyzing and evaluating information. So our thinking skills are being developed here. So when we think about the level and the language of our students, of whether they have the ability to be able to do that, if you imagine the students have, this is level 3, students have the ability to do this activity, so they have the ability to develop the thinking skills. I don't think the thinking skills are generally related to the language ability. So students might be very, very good thinkers, but not have the language to do it. They might have the language to do it, but might need to develop those thinking skills. They're not necessarily related. If you're good at English, doesn't necessarily mean you have good higher order thinking skills. So we need to develop both sides. Similar, I think there's similar parallels with CLIL. If you're teaching content language integrated learning, so you're learning English through a different subject, you might be good at that subject, but not good at English. And if you're good at English, it might help you with that subject. So we have a parallels there with that. So that's how Academy Stars helps you. So if you're teaching Academy Stars, make sure you do lesson 8. Make sure you don't throw this lesson away. Make sure you provide time in order for students to develop their thinking skills through this lesson. And now let's look at how we as teachers can create original materials. And hopefully this won't be too time consuming for you. So when we create original materials, obviously we need to do some preparation. And I know, in fact, it's very, very difficult to find a teacher that has got lots of time on their hands. Generally, teachers are very busy. They've got lots of work to do. But hopefully I can show you a framework now, a staircase that will help you develop thinking skills for your students. So I was looking at Academy Stars and thinking about how we can, or where we can create the original materials. And I've decided to look at the story lessons. So the reading time lessons, there are 4 of them throughout the book. And I think reading is incredibly valuable. And I think we should do it. We shouldn't, again, miss these lessons out. They're very, very important. Reading helps to develop vocabulary, helps to develop grammar, and then from that helps to develop our speaking and our writing as well. It's super important. So I wanted to focus on these reading time lessons to show how you can get the most out of these lessons. So we're going to look at this staircase, this question staircase. So we're going to start at the bottom with remember and move our way up to the top. Why do you think I've got 3 creates there? Why haven't I only got 1 create? I've got 1 for remember, 1 step for remember, 1 for understand. Why have I got 3 creates? Good answer, John. But I want to turn that around on you, John. Because I don't necessarily, I think while some people are typing, I think it's interesting that creativity, I think I'm quite creative, but I think it also takes a lot of work for me to be creative. I'm going to give you options in a moment, John. So the reason I've given you 3 levels of create is because, as I said earlier, I think teachers generally are creative. It's kind of part of the job description. And I think it's one of the easiest things for us to develop when we think about creating original materials. It's really, I think, easy for us to do lots of creative activities. And really, you're only bound by your imagination. So that's why I've got 3 creates. I think the rest of them are more difficult to develop, to provide original materials for, but creating is really limitless. It's endless, depends on you. So that's why I've got 3, and I will give you some examples in a moment. So here we've got some examples. So if we go back to the first one, so we're thinking about telling a story and we ask questions about the story. Here we've got remember. Who it was in the story, what did they do, when did they do it, where, etc. So these are our simple remember questions. But there's no point in remembering something if you don't understand it. All right. So here we have deeper questions about why and how, what's the main idea, what was the sequence of the story, so that we can really make sure that our students understand the story and what happened. Then we have the apply section. What would you do in the same situation? How would you feel? So we're asking students to reflect on themselves and try to understand the story even deeper. Analyzing, so we're classifying characters, showing them how they're related to each other. So how is as I mentioned earlier, if Little Red Riding Hood, how is the granny the same as the wolf? And how are they different? How might Little Red Riding Hood be able to find out that they were different by just examining both of them? Which part do you like or which don't you like? Why or why not? So evaluating the story from their point of view. And then the create, invent a new ending, tell a story from a different point of view, role play the story. So these are our question staircase. And I think if we can, when we're thinking about telling a story, if we can think about these 6 key areas and getting students to think about these key areas after they've done the lower order thinking skills, then it will really, really help them develop those key critical thinking skills and those higher order thinking skills. So let's try. Let's have a look and see if we can do this ourselves. So I've set up a Google Sheet that we're all going to have a look at in a moment. And I'll put the link in the chat box in a moment. But here we have in fact, let me go to the Google Sheet right now. One moment while I share my screen. So you can see this Google Sheet here. In a second, there it is. Okay, now the story we're going to look at is a very famous story. It's a story about the hare and the tortoise. Or, in this story, it's the rabbit and the tortoise. Okay, and what we're going to do, first of all, is we're going to quickly read the story, or you're going to quickly read the story, and then I'd like you to think about what questions you could ask in the remember section. All right. So, for example, you can see here, who were the characters? Would be a question you could ask to have the students remember the information. So for each of the areas of Bloom, I'm going to give you just a few minutes. I just want you to think about this and try and type in your ideas as you go forward. All right, so we'll start with remember, and let me just copy that into the chat box for you so you can access the page. So you can click on the link in the chat box and move over to the Google Sheet and start adding your ideas. Okay, people are in there now. So you can write them anywhere you like and then just paste them in. And when we've got a few ideas, we can stop and we'll move on. So you're going to write the questions. Don't worry about the answers. Your students will answer the questions. Good question. So remember, no answers, just write the questions. It's a question staircase. Excellent question. Good. Where are they? Yep. Yep. Good, good. And I will tidy this up for you at the end of the session and send the document to you as well. Okay, you can stop there. That's great. All right. You can stop writing. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. And let's see if you got any similar answers to me. All right. So this is what I came up with. So how did the tortoise walk? How did the rabbit hop? Who won the race? And then act out the story. All right. So I will add these again to our Google Sheet, and you can have these when we finish. Now you might think act out the story. That's quite creative, but in fact, acting out a story doesn't take much creativity. They just have to remember what the characters did and do the same thing. Acting out the story would be a remember task. Creating a new story and acting out the story would obviously be creative. Okay, go back to the Google Sheet. And this time, let's look at the next page, which is understand. So can you write me some questions that show how a student, or that would elicit understanding from the students? So I've got, why was the rabbit happy at the start? What other why questions are how questions? Oh, I haven't got my, let me paste, I'll paste the question staircase in as well. So I'll give you a few minutes to have a think about that. Yep. Good, good. Mm-hmm. All good. Start over myself. 30 more seconds. Good. Good. Okay, excellent work. Great. So you can see just from, I'm giving you like 2 minutes to do this. Normally we'd have a bit more time. And for me, it definitely took me more than 2 minutes to do each one. But if we have a lot of people, it's even better. So if you're in a teacher's room with lots of people, get them involved in your preparation as well. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. And I'll show you my ideas for understand. So why was the rabbit happy at the start? Why did the rabbit fall asleep? How did the rabbit win? I think we have those questions. And now let's have a look at apply. So let's move the tab along at the bottom. At the bottom, you can see the tab, apply. And I've got my example there. What would you do if you were the rabbit? I need to just paste my question staircase again. Yep. How would you feel? Yeah, that's a nice question, isn't it? My chair is very squeaky. I do apologize. It says at the end of the story, the rabbit laughed too, but I would imagine he wouldn't laugh. What would you say to the rabbit in the end? That's a nice question. I like that. I'm just going to move that one into the box at the top. What do you learn from the tortoise? Yeah, good. Okay, good. Now you see, as we're getting a bit further on, it becomes a bit more of a challenge to think about the questions that we're writing. All right, but you might have loads of questions for remember, loads of questions for understand, and that's fine. But as we get further on, 1 or 2 questions is fine, just to get those thinking skills working. And I think all of these questions here are ideal in order for students to reflect, to think about themselves, and to deepen their understanding and build on their thinking skills. So let's see if we got the same as me. So I had, what would you do if you were the rabbit? Would you laugh at the tortoise? How would you feel if you were the rabbit or the tortoise? Maybe that should be, would you laugh at the rabbit, actually, because it was them laughing at the rabbit, wasn't it? A little bit of a mistake. So these apply questions are becoming a bit more of a challenge. Now let's have a look at our analyze. Share that. So let's go to the Analyze tab, and you'll see now I've changed the story. So this is the next part of the story. It's a very similar story. Let me just go back to apply, copy that. It's a very similar story in terms of the values and the meaning, but there is a difference to the story. So I'll give you a moment just to have a look at that. You might have read it before if you're teaching level 3. And we're looking at analyze. And again, I think you can see how it just becomes a bit more of a challenge. And I think that's probably why we don't see too many of these kind of questions in some of the materials that we use. I think it's getting much better though. And I do love that Academy Stars has got that whole unit dedicated to analyzing and evaluating in lesson 8. I'm excited to see these questions. So if you think you're analyzing the 2 characters, you've got the sun and the wind, and you've also got the man as well. But he's kind of secondary, isn't he? He's more the object of the story. You have the sun and the wind. So how are they alike? So they're both competitive, aren't they? So how could you make classifications? Okay, I'll give you a few more minutes to have maybe 2 more minutes to have a think about that. And then I'll show you my examples. Okay, good. So I think we're kind of looking a little bit there. When we look at the who and the whats and the whys, we're looking mainly at the remember, understand. So let's have a look at my ideas and see if you've got a similar thought to that. I think with the analyze and evaluate, you have to just do a little bit more with it. And it is a bit more of a challenge for us as teachers to develop questions because we're normally thinking about those comprehension and those remember questions. But let me show you some examples. So here's what I've got for analyze. So when we think about classifying, so what I did was I took out some of the words from the story. So blue, stronger, bright, cloud, cold, warm, and shone. And students would then have to match these or put them in the category. So blue matches with wind, of course. And as students read the story, I'm stronger than you, said the wind. So stronger would be wind. And then we can think about how are the sun and the wind alike and how are they different as well. So we can analyze the 2 different characters. Now we've got evaluate and create to come. So let's keep going. I think this is going to be useful. So create, I've already got the example in create of invent a new ending. And I am just looking in the chat box as well on the other computer. It says, is it useful if I ask students to role play the story? Well, definitely it is, yeah. But remember, if they're role playing the story, the same story, then it's probably going to be remember task and understand task. If they're role playing and adding, maybe improvising and adding their own ideas to the story, then this is super, super creative. So it depends how the direction that you give them. If you give them the story to read and act out, more remember. If you give them a free rein to be anything they want in the story, then this would be creative. So let's see how inventive and creative we. Oh, I've moved to create. Sorry. I need to go to evaluate. I do apologize. Can you go to evaluate? Apologies. We'll come to create in a moment. Or if you're in create, stay in create. So I'll give you a couple more minutes. And this, once you've got the, now you have the link for this, you can keep adding to this if you want to as you go through. I'll keep this, I'm not going to delete this document. So this will be here for you to look at, for you to use, for you to add to if you want to after today's session as well. So if you are teaching this lesson, then you can come back to this and get these really cool questions that hopefully people will add as we go on. And you can do the same if you tab to create as well, if you want to have a look at the create. But I'm just looking at the time, so I'm going to go back and show you my examples now, and then you can add your own as we go further on into the future. So for, my screen's up, yeah. So for evaluate, very similar to what we had in the question staircase. So write a summary. Which character did you like? Which character did you dislike? Which part of the story did you like and which didn't you like? And then looking at create, excuse me. So similar to what we had in the staircase. Invent a new ending, write yourself. Imagine you're the sun and the wind and write a letter to the man explaining why the weather was so strange that day. So that would be a really creative way of really showing understanding and getting students to understand. So this question staircase, this framework, is a really useful tool for you to move beyond the lower order thinking skills, to move beyond and move into developing different thinking skills from your students. So to not ask those simple questions of who, what, when, and where, but to ask them much more why, explain why, which did you like, which didn't you like, give us a reason why you think that. Don't just tell me the answer, tell me why it's that answer, and get them thinking a bit more deeper as to why they believe things. Okay, so I just wanted to finish by showing you some very simple activities now. or a very simple activity that helps with thinking skills, and one that you can use when you're teaching vocabulary. So this is from Academy Stars Level 3. I think it's Unit 6, and we're teaching about the sea. So here you can see we have 3 different animals: the jellyfish, the octopus, and the penguin. And what we're trying to do here is analyze and talk about differences. So even a simple activity like this can build our thinking skills. So with these 3 activities, which is the odd one out? Has anybody got any ideas? Which is not correct? Which shouldn't be there? The penguin. Why though? See, now this is where the thinking skills comes in. You can't just say penguin. You have to say why. This word here is very important because excellent answer, because it has 2 legs. Very good. The penguin can produce electricity. Well, I did not know that. The jellyfish can produce electricity. I didn't know that either. Good. Okay. Those of you saying the penguin, good answer, but it's not correct. It can lay eggs. Good. Penguin is intelligent, yeah. Octopus is intelligent too. Octopuses can open jars. So if the penguin is not right, which one is correct? Which one's the odd one out? The jellyfish. Why the jellyfish? Good question, yeah. Good answer. Jellyfish doesn't have a brain, good. They're very good answers, but it's not correct. Not correct. So which is the odd one out? Very good. Jellyfish can sting, yeah, good. Very good, Miss Quinn, yes. It is a trick question. Well, it's not a trick question, really. It's just a question so that students can answer the question and use creativity and thinking skills. Of course, all of them are correct, whatever you say, as long as you can justify, as long as you can analyze and talk about those differences and say why, then you are correct. So this is a nice way to get students to think about answers, to get them to think of, to make them not afraid to give answers, because as long as they can say why, then they will be correct. All right, for sure. The penguin's the correct answer because it's small. Octopus is the correct answer because it can change color. There are so many different answers that students can look at and can come to a conclusion about, and therefore be correct. So this is a really nice way of building those thinking skills. You can do it with many, many different things. You can do it with you can do it with fruits. You can do it with transport. You can do it with pretty much jobs. You can do it with anything, because there will always be differences that students can recognize, and it gets them thinking a bit deeper as to how they are different and how they are, in fact, the same, which is what we'll come to right now. Here we have, we'll move on, but here we have a Venn diagram. So we have 3 different animals now. We've got a starfish, a shark, and a crab. And what we're looking at now is classifying. So we're analyzing and we're classifying and saying why things are the same and why they are different. All right. So number one, what do you think is the same for all of the animals? Excellent work. Yeah, they live in the water. So let's look at number two. The crab is different. Why is the crab completely different to this one, to the starfish and the shark? Why is the crab different? It's got legs. It's got claws. Yes. Okay, good. All right, so we get our students to think about this and tell us why. Number three, why is the starfish different from the crab and the... Why is the starfish different? Number three. It has ears, does it? Oh. There you go. Yeah, it looks like a star, of course. Yeah, it's a bit soft, isn't it? I think on the underside, maybe, yeah. But definitely a crab's got a hard shell and it's got spines. Good. Number four, I've got two for the shark. So why is the shark different? Yep. 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 All those things. It's got a tail fin as well, yeah. And then we've got these ones in the middle here. So number five, how is the crab and the shark the same? What's the same about these two? Carnivores, yeah. Some sharks are. Yep, they can attack us. And what about number six then? So number six, the starfish and the crab are the same because yeah, in terms of the shark, they're small, yeah. Okay, great. So what we're doing here is getting students to think about things that are the same and things that are different between the three different fish, three different sea creatures. Now, again, you can also change this for pretty much any kind of vocabulary, and you can even ask them to be creative and come up with their own topics and then their own items within that topic. You might list some topics on the board that they can choose. So again, they may have transport, train, bus, airplane, and they have to come up with the similarities and the differences between those. Here are my answers. So very similar to what you guys had said. And then going back full circle to our, oh, and there's a template that I'll leave with you for your Venn diagrams. So students can choose a topic, they can write that in the middle, and then choose three items within the topic, and then decide what's the same and what's different about those items. And then going back full circle, we looked at the start about the beep dictations. So these are really, really cool when you're presenting dialogues with the children. So this is all about prepositions of place. I think it's where's my bag. Let me look at the dialogue. Where's my car? Yeah. And look, you can see it's on the seesaw. So that you might say to the students, oh no, where's my car? Look, it's beep the seesaw. And they have to come up with the correct preposition for you. So using those beep dictations, a really nice way to just present new grammar or check grammar or present new vocabulary again or recycle vocabulary. Okay, now we come to my final slide, which is a question and answer. Sorry about that, there's a mistake there. Whoops. Does anybody have any questions? I will also say, while you're thinking of questions, we have a survey here and we have some prizes that we will send to you in a lucky draw. So if you want to win some lovely Macmillan education prizes, you can. I think we have some a methodology book, we have some business card holders, we've got umbrellas, we've got lots of nice prizes. So please fill in the survey and we will draw out some lucky winners, and you can win prizes. So if you have any questions, let me know. There is a perennial problem, isn't it, with motivation for students. And I think hopefully by doing activities that get students to think, it's kind of a double-edged sword. If they're coming to class and they're not motivated, I think it's our job as teachers to try and think about why they're not motivated. So my feeling is if you can try and find out from the students what they're interested in and what motivates them and try and do things that help them with that, or that feed into the things that they're interested in, then it will help. I think by asking deeper questions, you can also motivate them, and getting them to be more creative can also be motivating for some students. But it is finding out what your students' needs are, and what the kind of things that they like, and maybe even if it's the things that they like. I'll give you an example. I had a group of students, and they were secondary students, and they were a group of girls. They were secondary 1 to secondary 3, and they weren't motivated by learning English at all. And I'm an older man. I didn't really have anything in common with these girls, these students. So what I tried to do was, what I recognized was that they were all interested in art, and they're all interested in music. So during the lesson, I would play music that they liked. They wrote a list of songs that they wanted me to play during the lesson while they were doing various activities. And I said I would do that as long as there was like a give and a take. So they had to come to class ready to learn. They had to participate in the classroom. And if they did this, then I would reward them with playing music. So I think this is the kind of thing you can do. If you can find out what they like and what they want, then a bit of give and take can help them. A bit of a carrot and a stick approach to motivation with children, I think, is very useful and very effective. How many questions we can have each part? Well, I think it's up to you, but I think lots of questions for remember and understand, of course. It just makes sense that there'll be lots of questions there. But then as we go further up the ladder, then you're going to have fewer questions. Can all of us win a prize? I don't think that's possible. I don't think we have enough prizes for 90 people, so probably not. Different levels of ability. Now, that's a good question. I think what you can do there, when you're giving questions, for example, if you have a different levels of ability, is you can, a very simple way of doing this is if you have 10 questions, for example, the stronger students answer all 10, and the weaker students answer 8, and the weaker ones after that answer 5. And you can highlight the questions as being, for your own purposes, is the skill or the thinking skill that you're trying to develop. So if you're with your stronger students, you might have 2 questions from each of the steps, or maybe more from the higher order thinking skills. So you kind of balance it out. I think that's what I would do with the students who are at different levels. No, you don't need to apply all steps to HOTS to a lesson, but try to think about it rather than try to think about what you did in the last lesson. And if you're just developing the same skills of remember and understand, try to mix it up a bit. That would be my advice. And we will send you the slides, no problem at all. All right, and Tuan has just put the link to the survey. Like I said, please do the survey. It's really important to us. We do take into consideration everything that you tell us to try and make sessions better for you. I want to thank you very much for your time this morning. I'm really, really happy to be here. I wish I could be there in person, and fingers crossed it won't be long before we can come to Vietnam again and be there with you. So thank you so much for your time. I'll stick around if there's any more questions. But other than that, hope to see you soon, and all the best, and have a lovely, lovely day. And it's nearly the weekend. Have a lovely weekend. Thank you, Miss Sarah. That's a very nice comment. You've been paying attention.